Welcome everyone to the Board of Education meeting of May 10th, 2016. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the first opportunity for public comment. Would anyone like to make public comment tonight?
Is this mic supposed to talk to my belly button? Should I put it up? I know we're kind of limited to 3 minutes, so I was going to keep it to the written format that I've got here. Good evening, my name is Tom Chulik. I live at 10801 East Austin Road. I'm on the western edge of the Saline School District. I'm a member of a group that support the educational activities here at Saline Schools, as well as the other schools in Washtenaw County. I'm a substitute teacher. 10 years ago, there was a close relationship between school administration, teachers, and substitute teachers. Good substitute teachers were deemed critical to maintain classroom continuity with a teacher when a teacher was absent. But then the crash occurred and there was a mad scramble to balance school budgets. It was tough. Everyone took a pay cut. Substitute teachers' pay went from $100 a day to $75, a 25% pay cut. During the ensuing years, another change occurred in our relationship with the schools. We now contract our services through companies like ASOP and EduStaff. These companies take care of the administrative and logistics for substitute teacher placement, but do not represent us when it comes to wages. This is up to the individual school district. At the beginning of the school year, several schools in Washtenaw County took steps to address the low wages still being paid to substitute teachers. Dexter and Chelsea schools raised our pay to $90 per day, and Arbor schools raised it to $100 a day, finally back to where it was 10 years ago. Unfortunately, Milan, Lincoln, and Saline schools have remained at $75 a day. Here are a few fun facts about the $75, which is $10.70 an hour, related to other wages in the Saline community. At Walmart, the average wage for a part-time employee is $10.60. They would be the person who greets you at the door. I know that school systems do not like to compare to big corporate wages, so how about a wage comparison with the students of Saline? An informal survey of Saline High School students reveals that a babysitter makes on an average $9 an hour. A Saline High School student acting as an umpire at a 4th grade baseball game makes $25 a game, or about $12.50 an hour. All these students' wages are tax-free. As a substitute teacher making $10.70 an hour, I'm taking home about $9.04 after standard tax deductions. You're paying me the equivalent of a Saline babysitter's wages. Raising substitute teachers' wages back to where they were 10 years ago, $100 a day, would come out to $14.30 an hour, and after taxes, $12.30. Not quite up to the pay of a high school student umpire, $12.50, but pretty darn close. Please take the time to review this handout, which describes the responsibilities of a substitute teacher, so that you can more fully understand the demands of this position. I'm sure that you'll find that it exceeds the duties of my grandson's baseball umpire. On the last page, you'll find a handout. I've summarized the financial examples given in this address. I've included my phone number as well as if there are any questions. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment at this time? Okay, administration.
Just a few things today. One, I'd like to thank Ms. Frink and Ms. Padilla, along with all the other chaperones from the high school prom that occurred over the weekend. So I appreciate all of their hard work in pulling that event together. I'd also like to thank the several teachers. There's about 40 teachers here yesterday. Mr. Tomosic was one of those teachers, as related to kind of a vision for next generation and what is next for that. And so we've been doing a lot of planning associated with that, and we wanted to bring a group of teachers together to really talk about that, get feedback from them before we move too much further. So I really appreciate their time. It's late in the year on a Monday afternoon, and they took the time to come and provide us with their input, and I really appreciated that. On a similar note, tomorrow, Mr. Lotch, myself, and several teachers will be driving down to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and visiting Southwest Allen schools. That's a school district that came and toured Saline back in the fall. I'm really looking at their partner district of ours in the Ed Leader 21 network, and so again, we're trying to learn from each other relatively locally, and so we're excited to head down there tomorrow morning, see that we'll be back in the afternoon. Lastly, I would like to congratulate Annie, who is the recipient of a $500 scholarship from, it's called the Boomerang Project, but effectively for her work as a link crew leader. So Annie, congratulations, I just got word of that today. And that's all I have.
Board members?
We had a foundation meeting this morning, and they are moving forwards on this year's strategic grants and looking at the high school, so that's exciting. We will not steal their thunder of what they're looking at, but just to let you know, it will be at the high school this year. And they do have a fundraiser at Mancino's this week. So if anybody has dinner on Wednesday, tomorrow night, from 4 to 9, 15% of your order will go to the Foundation for Swimming Area Schools. So if you gotta eat, that might be a good spot to go. So that's all I have. Oh, actually, no, one more. Next Monday is the legislative breakfast for Washtenaw ISD school boards.
That's at 7:30.
It's at 7, I believe.
7:30, that's 7 o'clock, I think.
7 o'clock they start.
Coffee.
Yeah, breakfast this time.
Using food to increase
Attendance.
Participation.
I am the Saline Area Schools representative on the Saline Sesquicentennial Committee, the 150th birthday party, so we're just starting to gear up a lot of activities. You will see these coming around shortly. They have produced a book of 150 years of Saline. I think they went decade by decade. I think it's going to be about 200 pages. It is going to be $20. It's a pretty good bargain if you're interested in the history of our city, which we all should be. And there will be a whole gaggle of activities starting to be put out shortly. So we're still working on that. Secondly, I'd like to thank everyone who voted last week in the ISD special education millage. Even though there wasn't, I think it was about a 12% turnout overall, which was fairly good for an off election. There have been some that have kind of characterized this as a windfall for the district because our general fund money does not go to cover special ed anymore. We're taking more of a conservative approach. In, I think, 2 years or 3 years, there is another renewal of another millage for special education that will be coming along. So we are kind of at this peak for a couple of years. So the budget committee will be taking a look at how it's going to affect our budget, looking at the fund balance, capital fund planning a little bit, some other things we can do, one-time things in the district that we don't need to pay for years and years, not knowing if that renewal will pass the next time. So thank you everyone who voted for that. And rowing team. Girls won, boys won, combined won, first time in 51 years, or third time in 51 years.
It was the,
Wyandotte there, no?
it was Wyandotte, and it's the first time in, as long as they can remember, that, and this has been going on for 50 years, that somebody outside of their own boathouse actually won all three. So that was a big kudos for our rowing teams.
So they're doing well as long as all the other sports, spring sports are doing good, so.
And actually, they have a home regatta, and they're trying to, usually that's a sport a lot of people don't know, and our home regatta is this weekend at Ford Lake.
Ford Lake?
Yep. We're trying to encourage students to come out and see what the sport is and root them on.
Okay, anything else, any other board member comments, Dennis?
I had the pleasure of this morning at the high school interviewing 8 students, seniors graduating for the Jack Crabtree Tribute Scholarship Fund Award. And going through these students, they're amazing. If you would just see what our students do when you look at them on paper and meet them in person, just amazing what these kids are doing. We all sit on the committee and say, gee, we wouldn't be able to get to the table here. They are really, really top-notch students, I'll tell you. Our educators here really do a great job, and our parents as well. So it's always a very tough decision, but very rewarding to see it.
Yes,
There's a Saline art fair this weekend at the high school, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
Yes.
Just counting down those days till it's
14
the
days.
final 14 days. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
Support.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Scheduled reports, Saline Area Social Services.
Invite social services forward. He's got to get to the Girl Scouts meeting, which I think is still across just across the hallway here. So.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jameel Akins, and I'm the Executive Director of Saline Area Social Service. I was coming for 2 reasons. Number one, to invite you to our upcoming grand opening, which is going to be a week from Saturday. And number 2, just to formally thank the students and staff and leadership of Saline Area Schools. I don't know if everyone here knows, but the Saline Area School District students are our biggest sponsors and supporters. Just to give an example of some of the activities that happen at Saline Social Service because of the students here. Every year in December, the National Honor Society does a food drive and collects over 11,000 products for us. And that food lasts us for 3 to 4 months. Every Saturday, a group of students from the high school from Project Outreach go shopping for us. One time a month, the National Honor Society comes out on a Saturday and still volunteers with us. The young adults come during the week and shop on Tuesday and Thursday. Liberty Club comes in during the week and works as well. We have students coming from the Saline High School Transition Program on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We have students from the Key Club coming to volunteer at our grand opening on Saturday, and then also several other drives that happen throughout the year at the middle school in the fall, etc. And when we were moving into our building, we had several of the sports teams volunteering, hockey team, men's swim team, and women's swim team coming to help us move and renovate the building. So I just want to say thank you and just acknowledge the generous support of the students and staff of Saline Schools.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for all the work you do, too. Chinese Student Exchange Program, Dr. Help.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on the Chinese program and where we're at in terms of what's happening with the students that we have and then how we're following through next year. So I have a little update for you on paper that's coming around that I put together just to give you a little bit of a summary on the program. As you know, we established a partnership through BCC International last year. Last May, I went to China with this group and along with some administrators from Dexter High School. And we visited several schools, 2 from Chongqing and 1 from Shenyang in China, and went to also go and see some of the assessments that they were creating for the Chinese in terms of their English language proficiencies. So we visited 3 schools. One school in particular, Northeast Youth High School, is where our 5 students come from. They follow in their school, if they're intending to come to the U.S. to study, they follow the Michigan graduation requirements so that prepares them to articulate that credit once they're here. They did that. We issue, as Saline Area Schools has CVIS certification, we can issue an F1 visa to those students, and that's what we did this year. We issued that visa to them. Host families were found through an application process and vetted here by Saline High School staff. So it's a little bit of a difference with a traditional exchange program. Those exchange companies are who find the host families for students. In this case, we're responsible for finding the host families for these students. The students pay a tuition of $10,000 per year to attend Saline High School, and the school district also receives the foundation allowance. So there are some benefits to embarking on this sort of adventure with BCC. It is that we can provide exposure to the Chinese to American school system. Through these Chinese partners, it can generate revenue through the school district and expand the cultural competencies of our students. Expansion of the program could result in our students going to attend a Chinese partner school. They could go to China and attend a short-term camp. There's the possibility of introducing Mandarin as a language at the high school through the revenue generated through this program. So there are a lot of possibilities here. So we currently have 5 students, and you can see in year 1, 2015 and 16, we have 5 students, and you can look at the revenue, the tuition, and the FTE, plus we get some revenue through our winter camp that we hosted. They arrived in late August. We had an orientation and sort of exposure to the Saline area. We worked on credit articulation with the counseling staff to make sure that we knew sort of what credits the students had and what credits they needed in order to move toward a diploma here at Saline High School. We placed them in their classes to complete these graduation requirements. We have English language learning support through Tanya Hike, and you saw her the last time that we were here with the students. We have deemed at the high school as our foreign exchange ambassador, and we use part of the funds that come through the Chinese exchange program to pay her an additional stipend to run not just the exchange program, but to also oversee our foreign exchange programs with our students that come over. And so we have roughly 7 or 8 other students from other countries that come through exchange organizations. And so she sort of oversees them and provides them with English language learning support, contact with families, those kinds of things. And so we've tried to make this a full sort of foreign language program and not separating the two so much, but providing opportunities for them to all get together as well. And she provides a lot of that support for it. She also has structured gatherings and trips that are sometimes hosted by Saline, sometimes by Dexter, and we've been able to get those 2 groups together. And then we ran a collaborative winter camp this year that did generate some revenue for the school district in both Dexter and Saline. So the expenses in the program in year 1 really are program fees, extracurricular events, and the foreign exchange ambassador. So there aren't a lot of expenses associated with the program. So the revenue generated for those 5 students is relatively significant. We are not limited to taking 5 students. We can take more students. However, the capacity of housing those students becomes difficult. So at times we have a difficult time finding host families and maintaining those host families. What happens in year 2 is that our students will return, and what we've been doing is putting a lot of time into working with Dexter, WCC, Eastern Michigan University to try to secure a placement for these students next year in terms of their F1 visa. As a high school, we cannot issue an F1 visa for a second year. They can only get one for 1 year. So they have to get their F1 visa from a college. In order to get that F1 visa from a college, they have to be a full-time college student. To be a full-time college student, they have to be a graduate. They're not a graduate yet. So we have been through many, many conversations to try to figure out what's a creative way that we can make this work. This is where we have landed thus far. Students will go back to China and they will graduate from their home school in China. So they'll take the credits they've earned here from the U.S. school back there, they'll articulate it and graduate them from their Chinese school. The students will take the TOEFL, which is a proficiency test, before they leave, and that will qualify them to register for Washtenaw Community College. When they come back, they will be graduates from their Chinese school, and they can enroll in Washtenaw Community College, but only through an English language learner program. That English language learner program will be housed at Dexter High School, because Dexter has a cooperative agreement with Washtenaw Community College to house classes on their campus. So I know that was a lot. Hopefully you were able to follow that whole trail all the way through. So where we're at today is our students are getting ready to take the TOEFL. It is earlier than they thought they were to take it, and for our Chinese students, taking the TOEFL is a very big deal for them. They feel that they need more time to study, but what we need them to do is take the TOEFL so that they can enter WCC. What that will do is provide them with support with English language learning, which is what they need. So while they've been here a year, they're doing very well. All the students have roughly a B average at Saline High School, taking all the regular coursework, and it's very rigorous. Through their transition and everything, are doing very well at Saline High School. However, their English still needs some work, and as well as they are doing in their classes, we notice that they do need some work on their English language. So what this program will provide is a good solid foundation for that learning prior to them going to college. And so we really feel like this will be supportive to them. So next year they will come back. They will also pay a tuition. However, we are not sure yet, we're checking with People Accounting, that we can capture any of an FTE for them next year because we're not issuing the visa. But they will pay tuition through us. That tuition partially will go to WCC for coursework, and you can kind of see in my notes under year 2 how much that will be roughly. So we will capture some of that tuition money here in Saline. They will enroll 12 credits through WCC. They will be ELL classes that will earn them their English credit for their requirement at the high school. They currently need English, math, and some tech credit. So what the students will do is they'll come to Saline High School next year. For first hour, they'll take math and get their math credit out of the way. They have 3 trimesters, so they can take their math and their technology in that time, and maybe another elective. They will catch the consortium bus from Dexter that drops students off at Saline High School. They'll get on that bus and go back to Dexter, where they'll spend the remainder of their day. They'll do that Monday through Thursday. The program is just 4 days a week, and it is 12 credit hours that they'll be earning. So they'll need a day to be able to study and put together their materials for college and for Saline High School. So they'll be very busy. So they'll have that 5th day at Saline High School, and they'll use it as a study day in the media center. To get home, we will use a bus that travels from Dexter to High Point School, and then our Saline school bus will pick them up from High Point School and get them home. So we're trying to figure out the logistics for that. Let's see. Students will graduate in the end of next year. These students will graduate from Saline High School with a Saline High School diploma. They will have earned 24 credit hours through Washtenaw Community College, and at that point they'll be eligible to apply to college to take courses that are outside of that ELL component of the coursework. So, on top of that, we can, and this is what Dexter is doing and some other schools are beginning to do, we can take another 5 students next year. So we could layer this so that we have students in year 1, and you can see what revenue is earned in that year 1 and what we can offer the students there. The next year you can kind of see how that happens. If we take 5 students next year, it'll be a repeat of that year 1 again. Probably the most difficult challenge is finding homes for the host families. You don't have to take 5, you can take 5, 10, 15, 20, however many you think you can find families for. But that's difficult, and I know you've probably seen Ann Arbor is planning to take several students next year. They're entered into the same agreement as we are with ECC. So in year 2016 and 17, you'll have our second year students. Potentially you could have some new first year students, and you could continue this process. I think the students have been a valuable asset to Saline High School. I think they integrated very well. I think the second year will be great. We wish that they could spend a little more time at the high school next year, but the way that CETA certifications and the F1 visa works, it just won't work out that way. So I think it's been a really good year for them. They've been excellent students for us. We've made sure that when they selected those students and sent them over, that they had good English proficiencies, and we do that with all of our foreign exchange students because we know that we have a pretty high rigor high school, and we need to make sure that English isn't a barrier for them for learning. Otherwise, we wouldn't be serving them well. So they've done an excellent job, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for you if you'd like.
I was reading an article about actually Chinese students now in college are the largest group of foreign students studying here in the U.S. They were talking about the English language problem, that they're sometimes not that proficient enough to really sit in a lecture.
Yeah.
Professors are sometimes having difficulty gauging their lectures accordingly. They don't know. Now we've got at the college level, you have the TOEFL exam.
Mhm.
How do you screen the students to see whether, at the high school level, whether they have English proficiency? I know you say.
Yeah,
So how do you do it?
There is an English proficiency exam that the students take if they're going through a foreign exchange program. It's similar to the TOEFL, but it's not the exact. Now, they could take the TOEFL. There are multiple English proficiency exams they take, but the one that they take now is called the LTIS. And they take that exam, and then we have some equivalent scores, and we look at how those scores relate to success in high school. And so we really take the top end of students. Some of our foreign exchange companies don't like our rigorous requirement for ELL, but it's exactly because of what you said in terms of their English proficiency. And we would see that paralleled at the high school with our students that we have now. Great students doing well, but they tend to stick together, and they like to speak in their own language. And so we've tried very much so to get them to be more involved with the general population and student body. We have two students in particular that are in the same house together, and we don't think that served them very well because they tend to speak in their native language and not in English. And so I think the ELL program, and even though we have some of our students are very high students, and we think in our minds, well, they could just take regular coursework at Washtenaw. We're not seeing that. We're seeing that they really need the English language support. So we think that this ELL program, which Linda Blakely at Washtenaw Community College has been really helpful in this process. And this was sort of a creative idea of hers to have them come in as international students. I think it'll be helpful for them moving forward.
Is there a deadline for us to take more first years for next year?
There's not a deadline. It's sort of open depending on how many host families that you can find. Tanya Hike, will work very hard, and we've put out some flyers and things to try to generate interest in host families. We need, the 5 that we have, almost all of the host families are taking them back, like not all of them are. So we will need some for the students that are coming back, and then depending on how many we can house. They like to get a commitment from us, okay, we're gonna house 5, and then they like to really push us to house that many. It just is sometimes difficult to secure the housing.
We're actually fortunate, we have 7 board members, so we probably could take up
Right,
to 7.
exactly.
But
Well, I will say that Superintendent Timmis took a
I
student
am
this
aware
year,
that he has
so-
reminded me of that multiple times. Multiple times.
So you may be able to have your 5th child.
Yeah. After all. Has Ms. Hike talked about anything of a surveying or assessing the students at the end to get a sense of what are some of their experiences and are things we can do to improve?
Yeah, well, in fact, she just sent me an email just this week saying she wanted to meet with me and do a debrief of the students and their experience there and some of the things that she's seen, because she's really been the one that's worked the most closely with the students and the families and been the one to communicate with, sort of processes and the things that they need to do for us in terms of coming back next year. And so she's been really working hard with the program. It's been invaluable having her do that.
it will be interesting, the county dynamic, because Ann Arbor indicated they were looking upwards of a couple of hundred. And I
Yes.
don't know if that's really gonna go
Yes.
in that direction. That's a really significant number to accommodate, but it will change and it will, from a program standpoint, does provide some opportunity over time
Yeah.
for that group, so it's interesting to see where it goes.
What kind of support is there for the families that take the kids on?
So they do get a stipend of $125 a week, and then their parents pay for everything for the students, so.
But if they do extracurriculars and things.
Your
and
parents pay
do-
for that. Yeah.
But the transportation and all that kind of stuff falls on the host family to get them.
It does, yes, and so that stipend of the $125 a week is supposed to take care of food and transportation and those things. So now, school transportation for us would be something an expense we would have to incur. We have not spent the money from this first year exchange. We've been really conservative with that money and only spent it on certain things that we needed to for the program. And so the mindset, and in Dexter, what they have done with their funds is brought over teachers from China to teach Mandarin in their schools. We have not taken that on yet. In my mind, we were trying to be cautiously aware of the abilities of those teachers before they came over, and I think that was a really good idea. There's been some training since then for the Chinese teachers that have come. Because just like our students are coming, these are native Chinese teachers coming, and they also have to, be able to speak English very well in order to teach Mandarin to our students. And so I think that's important to vet out that process before committing to that. But I do think there's interest at Saline High School for Mandarin training. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Shishi.
Yeah, she should.
Action items. Can I have a recommended motion to approve the recommended bids from bid package 2 as follows? HVAC and plumbing from Adrian Mechanical Services in the amount of $1,974,450. Earthwork and site utilities from Eagle Excavation Incorporated in the amount of $1,202,000. Asphalt paving from Cadillac Asphalt LLC in the amount of $675,000. Site and interior flatwork concrete from Angelo Italian Construction Company, I don't know how to say that name, sorry. Iafredi Construction Company in the amount of $252,509. Electrical at Harvest, the middle school and the high school from Tri-County Electric Company in the amount of $982,622. And electrical at Pleasant Ridge, Woodland Meadows Heritage, and the Woodland Meadows Heritage site work from Huron Valley Electric Company in the amount of $1,358,000 as submitted by Assistant Superintendent Warner.
So moved.
Support.
So, all the bids from bid package 2 have been received, and we're bringing to the board all the recommendations except for security technology and the PA clock systems. What we're bringing to the board totals just under 6.5 million. And once these are approved, Clark will be able to finalize the contracts and begin the process of scheduling the work for this summer. The security and technology and the PA clock systems are being reviewed by Clark, our consultant from Barton Mallow, and Rex Clary, and I believe those will be brought to the board at our next board meeting. And Mark Paulus is here from Clark to give you a little more information.
As Ms. Warner said, we have gone through and received the bids for bid package 2. The bids that we have brought forth for recommendation from the board was bid package 1, which was mainly architectural. And as Ms. Warner said, this is there's just a remaining portion of the security and the clock PA system that is under review by King Scott, Barton Mallow, and the district to determine what's in the best interest. As stated before, with the market and the bidding that we have as the backup, in some instances we had some very good coverage. As an example, under asphalt section, our low bid was $675,000, and our fourth bidder was $680,000, which was a very good competitive bid. and then in some cases, in our mechanical, which was our HVAC and plumbing, and the electrical portion on the larger dollars, because of the market itself, we struggled in regards to obtaining some bids. And also as part of this, what we have also looked at is on the electrical is deferring some of the work until 2017. And that was listed in our recommendation. It's deferring, and we think that there would be a better opportunity because of the potentially better bidding climate at that time, and also we'll be going through the process of the timing of the bidding may help us out as well.
So in largely, we looked at breaking out that, and this was done strategically because of our concerns over the bid coverage that we had not gotten a little bit in a sense, but particularly with the electrical and the size of it, but then ultimately too, from a budget capacity standpoint, was to look at pulling LED lighting out from this bid pack, and that's essentially what we're looking at doing, is delaying that and trying to take advantage of the timing opportunity moving forward. We also think it's not so specific of a unique thing that could potentially occur at various times, so we're going to be trying to be creative in terms of the LED. Understand the bids that we brought, because as Mark's talked about, the coverage and the climate, certainly for us, we're at the top end of where we're at, and so I think we're, fortunately, unfortunately, the economic rebound has hit us into where we certainly are paying the going rate.
And one thing noted, and I made an error, is there was an alternate as part of, in the earthwork and site utilities, spelled out as, if you take a look at the base bid as a backup, that an alternate, and that alternate was an underground retention system. When we bid the project, we were uncertain if that would be a requirement in the city, and that's why we bid it as an alternate. When we went through the plan review and a second discussion with the city, it was determined that the underground retention system was a requirement, and I did not include that in the letter, but that is what the alternate is for. It's not a requested by the district. It is a requirement by the municipality to slow up the stormwater as it enters into the stormwater retention, overall stormwater detention system.
And that cost was included in the bid amount, it just wasn't broken out.
Wasn't broken out, as identified as an alternate that was being accepted, and I apologize for not identifying that.
So none of the other alternates were accepted?
None of the other alternates were accepted. And I'll say, as we went through the bidding process and as we identified 17 alternates through the process in order to, and I'll say that's a very high amount, but that was what we felt with the bidding climate and the timing of the bidding and everything, in order to try to manage the budget as best as possible, in regards to, and give the district flexibility as well if the bidding did come in under budget, as an opportunity to provide the to accept these as well.
As far as the individual companies, we have worked with Adrian Mechanical and Tri-County specifically in the past.
And I would say we've, as part of our evaluation process, the bidding coverage may not have been as great, and I'll just restate, I mean, on the mechanical, electrical side, on each category, we invited 18 bidders. And on the electrical, we ended up, as mentioned at the last meeting, on the electrical, we had to postpone the bid, and we finally obtained 3 bids for the different buildings by breaking them apart. And on the mechanical side, HVAC and plumbing, we received the one bid. So we are playing in regards to the market conditions there, but also very confident with the contractors that have bid on the projects, that they have the capacity, they have the financial strength in order to do the project majority of these bidders on our financial evaluation form that we do for everybody are extremely low risk in regards to it, so.
Do we still feel, I mean, I think these are bid within our timelines. We still think we're gonna get all this work done starting June 10th too.
We are planning on, what is it, in certain buildings, the students leave on June 14th and we'll be starting on June 15th. And on the rest of the buildings, the latest that we'll be starting is June 20th.
You know, that is kind of the phase where, you know, this kind of, with the exception of the two kind of tech areas, wraps up the bid process scheduling. There's a room across the hall that they're going to be moving into in the next couple of weeks, and really you're going to start to see that there, you know, the on-site planning associated with the summer program work will really commence. The you know, the flip side of that is obviously some of this work is outside. You know, we're obviously hoping for an appropriate weather summer, but you know, we're committed to having the buildings open and ready for students on the first day. So.
And when you take a look at significant working wise, we talked with Eagle Excavating, and many of these contractors had windows of opportunity. You know, somebody who thought through the process for the project, they said, we're looking at putting 5 crews out here of a minimum of 5 tradesmen. And that's just the one trade out there, which is responsible for removing the existing conditions, start putting in the site utilities, and it's a window of opportunity. So I would say you're going to be seeing activity, the activity starting the week of June 20th in very high numbers very quickly.
The HVAC, now, this does not include the equipment because we bought the.
You've already purchased the equipment. This is the installation of the equipment, the piping, the ductwork, and there are some minor pieces of equipment that are part of this package, but the majority of the equipment was already approved prior by the board.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolution to amend the continuing covenants agreement for the 2012 debt refunding as submitted by Assistant Superintendent Warner?
So moved.
Yeah.
Support.
So as you remember, last fall, we refinanced our 2012 debt fund. And at that time, our attorney and our financial advisor were not completely thrilled with the language in the continuing covenant agreement. It has to do with language where J.P. Morgan would be able to make our issuance due and payable immediately. Typically, events such as bankruptcy or default on payment would make that condition happen. But they also included things like a drop in the credit rating down to a much lower level, or changing the swap agreement without their agreement would also be triggers. So they would not budge on that, and so our attorney got them to include language that if Standard & Poor's said that it would affect our credit rating, that they would amend it. Well, Mylan also had a similar agreement, and Standard & Poor's flagged theirs as saying this is going to change your credit rating. And so J.P. Morgan agreed to amend the agreement, and they agreed to do Saline at the same time. And so what the amendment does is it still includes that language, but for those kind of soft triggers, it allows the district 180 days to find refinancing before they actually call the issuance due. And so we would not be in a position of having to pay off immediately. And chances are none of this will ever happen, but we want to protect ourselves just in case. Yes.
Any questions, anyone? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Could I have a motion to approve the resolution to purchase a 2015 Ford Transit wagon from Briarwood Ford and enter into an installment purchase agreement with the Bank of Ann Arbor to finance the purchase of the van as submitted by Assistant Superintendent Warner.
So moved.
Second.
So we've had a couple of vans called Hornet vans over the years to transport small groups of students, like the golf team or just smaller groups of students. And those vans finally have been old. They're old enough that they just weren't safe to transport students anymore. So we sold one of the vans, and then actually the other van is being used by the Buildings and Grounds Department around campus locally. So we went out for bid on a van, and the Ford Transit van through Briarwood is one that met all of our specifications. It is a 2015. It has about 18,000 miles on it, so we're not going with a brand new van. And then Bank of Ann Arbor, we went out for bid for the financing as well, and we would finance through Bank of Ann Arbor at 2.54 for a 3-year installment purchase agreement.
How many miles do we usually get on those?
We honestly don't put a lot of miles on the vehicles. I believe the ones we had were from around 2001.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
so-
say 8 to 10 years is kind of the
Yeah.
window.
Yeah,
A little bit of borrowed time on these last ones.
yeah.
I'm assuming they get better gas mileage and are
Oh, yeah.
safer.
Yeah, yeah, they'll be safer.
Silver.
Silver,
Right, one of the neutral.
get logos,
Yeah.
send them over to the art department. They'll paint them. Tim can paint them for us. Some stuff, no. He says no.
Yeah. No.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, the motion carries 7-0. Discussion items. 2016, 2017 school calendar and early release.
I wanted to include this on the agenda to talk a little bit about, we've been talking about next year's calendar, and I know we've talked a little bit about the 5 additional days and developing the calendar. Steve Losh has been working with SEA Representative Carl Spina, have been working really for quite a few months, trying to come up with a calendar that's gonna work it, given some of the parameters around the start of school, the additional days, the timing, our need for professional development. We've been, in the past, looked at models that many other districts have gone to with either a late start or an early release and embedding professional development in a regular and continuous way throughout the school year, and what would be a model that would work. And I think we've settled on something that we feel has a significant benefit, certainly for our faculty and from our administration from an organizational standpoint in terms of trying to really provide opportunities for the training for our staff, but also has a minimal impact on parents. And so I wanted Mr. Losh to talk a little bit about that tonight.
Right, so we are looking at 6 early release days throughout the year next year. They'll happen in October, November, January, February, March, and April. And they're a block of time, a little over 2 hours, where the teachers will have professional development opportunities in the afternoon. And that gives some extended time, but continuous time throughout the year. Right now, we have a lot of after-school professional development time, which is hour blocks. And so this provides a little bit more time in the day for staff to participate in these types of activities, which we think is beneficial. But one of our concerns has been, well, how are we gonna work that with parents and inconveniencing parents that are not used to this many early release days. We normally have around 3 or 4 half days anyway throughout the year that parents are used to and they make appropriate plans. But our concern here is this then will push that number higher, and we have to consider families and what childcare, particularly at the K-5 level, but also looking at the middle school. So what we are doing now is we've sent out a survey to parents to get a feel for who would want childcare. The district would cover the cost for that on those days that we have the early release. And so what we're finding is 414, 415 now. The number keeps changing because we just sent out the survey yesterday, and we're getting responses. And out of the 414 people that have responded, 140 let us know that they would like childcare. However, 77 of those people were already in the Latchkey program. that was offered. So in other words, those students would just continue on after school in the program and stay till somewhere between 4:30 and 6 o'clock, where their parents were used to picking them up anyway. There were 63 parents or 63 students who said they would like to take advantage of childcare, which would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock in there, and then they would come pick up their child. So really, we're trying to get a feel for how many students would we be looking at, and parents are interested in that, so that we can figure out a method to cover that care. And that's going to be working with Brian Puffer in community education to provide additional support there. And our paraeducators also will be able to provide support so that we'll be able to have that care and really meet parents in a spot where it can be beneficial for them, and not seem that these extra release days are a real burden on families. So we're working through that and feel like we have a good solution for it.
Are the extra release days evenly spaced throughout, or?
Roughly, yes.
Roughly,
Yeah, I mean, we looked at not having one in September just because we're just getting school started, and December is a really busy month, so we didn't have one there. But then after that, sort of in the middle time frame of each month. And we would be really good at communicating as well. One of the things we've discussed with districts that have tried this is that you need to be great at communicating this with parents. Reminders all the time, getting people ready and making sure that everybody understands it. And then the other part we would work with Brian Puffer and Community Ed is we get parents to sign up electronically that we know who's supposed to come to care and who's not. Because we don't want kids showing up the door that we're not sure if they're still supposed to be there. We would have an organized method of keeping track and making sure that we create a safe environment for the kids.
Sounds good. Seasonal dome update.
All right, just wanted to touch base again. We haven't talked about the dome in a while, so I want to let you know we're still continuing to have some conversations. Just wanted to kind of bring everyone up to speed as to where it's going. We continue to kind of focus the efforts on determining if there's anyone in our community or folks or groups in our community that are interested in essentially funding and investing in this feature. But as we've gone through the process, there have been a couple of other scenarios that have come up. We've continued to talk about the stadium field. One of our discussions, there have been several folks from our track program and not necessarily even our school track program, but even within the county, who've indicated that that an indoor track space would have a significant advantages in addition to just the field space. So we've kind of they've taken a look at what that would look like. And then ultimately, some of the conversation really came around to, hey, would the reinvestment potential be for more of a permanent structure? So we've just kind of looked at those and really looked at the cost structure associated with those. And ultimately, continue to try and focus on, okay, what are our scenarios associated with developing some investment options associated with that? I know that the students recently did an article on it, and there's some interest, from our programs certainly, but however, there's still several hurdles for us to really look at. One is the management piece. We've spoken with two, Total Sports and Wide World, both are kind of management companies that currently operate indoor athletic facilities, and talked a little bit about what are the kind of the pitfalls of managing a facility like this, and what are some options. Both have indicated an interest in, if we were to have a structure, being that third-party manager of the structure. So that's something for us to potentially consider if we move down the road. And then ultimately looking at what would the costs associated with that be, because again, every dollar in management and operations, as well as the initial costs for the investment, really come off the top associated with any revenues generated. And then looking at really focusing on, for our investment options, at options 2 and 3. And so we're just continuing to kind of kick turns. We get probably a call every couple of weeks still from somebody who wants more information, whether it be a user, a potential user, or someone who's interested in kind of what are we doing in relative to whether or not there's an investment opportunity there. So just continue to move along. We're kind of running down the deadline in terms of what it would look like if we were to focus on the idea of something for 2016-17, but we're continuing to look at it. So our due diligence continues, I guess, is the bottom line.
Not ready to try GoFundMe for
No,
$2 million?
not yet, not
No,
yet,
no,
not
no.
yet, not yet.
We'll keep that in mind. Our third discussion item is balanced calendar. This was our topic of our study session At our last board meeting, I know the Post ran a survey count. There were a lot of positive and negative comments out on Facebook, social media. I had a phone call or two, and some, as Chief always says, I just need to know the talking points and pushes. So when we sat and thought about everything that we're doing in the district this year, the bond work, we've got a lot of other things coming up. What we have tentatively thought about doing is organizing a committee in December to start work in January and looking at a 6-month hard deep dive into the whole project, or I shouldn't say project, balance calendar, with the idea that in June of 2017 we would have an answer to implement a balanced calendar or some other option in the 2018-2019 school year. So that would give almost 1.5 years of implementation time if the district decides to go down that road.
To kind of piggyback on that, one thing about kind of going public with the idea of balanced calendar, or at least a discussion, there's been a lot of feedback, and really I've seen from all over the map in terms of people's opinions and thoughts and ideas around balanced calendar. One, I think, really deciding on, some version of definitions. I do hear a lot about, is balanced calendar year-round school, and so I just, when people ask that question, hopefully we can kind of define it for them. And then the next phase for us, I think, is something that we'll work on prior to December, is really talking at the county level about this concept and idea of a balanced calendar. What would that look? I think, as I've talked with a variety of people, when we talked here, the idea of a county being on it, and I know Jackson County has approached it with that, Saginaw County has approached it like that, really tends to make, is I don't want to say more sense, but certainly makes that transition more smooth in terms of consistency of around the variety of programs that we collaborate with. Thinking, just thinking about the presentation that Dr. Helber made tonight about the Chinese program and partnering with Dexter schools and the way transportation and consortium work. Those partnerships and that consistency of schedule is critical to our ability to provide the full breadth of the programming. And so that's something that we'll work on prior to December. So hopefully by the time we get to December and start to really do our deeper dive, we'll have some sense there to where that's going.
Any other? Nobody got Haiti, maybe, anything like that? No?
It's certainly got people talk. At the end of the day,
Was
talking.
was there any discussion at the high school, or kind of oblivious to the whole?
I think they're oblivious.
Until they realize they start school in the middle of August one year, and they won't be quite so oblivious.
The other thing, we talked about that timeline, and not that we're going, but it would avoid the next 2 summers related to our construction schedule. So
Yeah,
certainly, you effectively, but will hit a summer where you'll have a fairly short summer. You will have that transition to it in terms of ending in probably mid-June and then an early start. So
It should be Kyle's senior year. I'm afraid to even mention that to him.
let's just wait. Last
We're
moment
gonna,
necessary.
right, no
Last
panic
moment
attacks.
necessary.
So that would put graduation when?
Right.
4th of July?
Yeah.
Then we could have
Have a
fireworks.
picnic and fireworks after the graduation.
Just one big town party instead of individual.
We're so rested from having all those breaks throughout the year, it'll be fine.
Oh, my God.
We'll love it.
Can we just push it back one more year?
Consent agenda. Can I have a motion to authorize the following items as part of the consent agenda? A, approval of the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of April 26, 2016. B, approval of payment of the general fund accounts payable of May 10, 2016, in the amount of $680,824.78. C, receive and file the May curriculum, finance, and human resources reports.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Next agenda, we will have today's delayed.
Yep, we'll have first Heritage will headline.
Heritage.
They're excited to have us on the 26th. Focused right now probably in the media center for that meeting, so we'll be in the media center. But so Heritage will lead us off. The WISD will be presenting their budget for us to review, and we will have the final bid items, bid package items. At least the final ones related to some of the summer construction. Understand there are other things specifically related to technology that we're continuing to work on. We're focused right now on the areas that are under the Kinks Clark purview for this summer.
This is the second opportunity for public comment. Would anyone like to make public comment? Our next meeting will be May 24, 2016, 6:30 p.m. at the Heritage Media Center. Can I have a motion to adjourn the regular Board of Education meeting of May 10, 2016 at 7:30 p.m.? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Joel.